Good morning. Morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Arise with me, Sally Goodwin. Welcome, everyone. Here I am. Better late than never at all. Oh, sorry, let me just organize myself a little bit. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Arise with me, Sally Goodwin. It is good to be here this morning. So, I'm a bit late this morning because Facebook gives you all these new tools to use, and so it keeps suggesting that I set up my live event before the time. And do like create an event, because it tells me that if I create an event, more people will, it tells more people, it lets more people know, and then more people will join. Good morning, Bridget. Lovely to have you for as long as you can. Good morning, Chantel. So it tells me that if I create an event before the time, then it will let more people know. It will, all of those good things. Okay. So, and now I have this wonderful media company who are sowing into my ministry and creating these. Good morning, Hanika. Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Heroic Hilda. Good morning, Samantha. Welcome, all of you. Good morning, beautiful Bertha. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you very, very much. Good morning, Karen. Yes, thank you. My birthday, God is really good to me. So Tammuz is my birthday month, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you know. And please, yes, like and share. Good morning, Sylvia. Tammuz is my birthday month. Good morning. Good morning, Brenda. Thank you, my friend. So yes, Tammuz is my birthday month. July is my birthday month in the Gregorian calendar. Good morning, Candace. And my birthday, God has been very good to me. My birthday has started really early. So God is celebrating my birthday with me for the whole month this year, and I feel incredibly spoiled. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so Facebook encouraged me to do this whole thing of setting up this post early and doing this whole setting up the live early. And I have this incredible media company, Brandbox Media, who have offered to sow into my ministry and create these beautiful social media posts for me. So I was like, okay, I have this opportunity. I have these social media posts that are being created for me, and I can do this ad and all of this kind of thing. But this morning, I couldn't figure out how to get onto the live from what I'd created last night. I created the ad, I created the event last night. It was a very long day, and it was quite late, and my brain was quite fried. And so I probably should have not done it then. I should have waited until I was feeling a little bit more compass mentis, but let me just try this. And I had the post ready and I was all excited about it, and I did it. And then this morning I sat down thinking it was just as quick as like clicking on the thing to go live, and it wasn't that easy. I need to just work at it a little bit more. So welcome, everybody. Good morning, Anisha. Lovely to see you. We have, so I have like things just, there are so many things that God is sending my way. He's just so good and He's so generous, and He has answered my prayers in so many incredible ways. And still, the internet thing has not been sorted out. So good morning, Jolene. So welcome, all of you. You are so very, very welcome here this morning. And I'm still not in my little space that my beautiful husband cleared for me. I'm still up here, still trusting that somehow the internet will sort itself out. Divine intervention. I'm just trusting for divine intervention. Good morning, Almin. Lovely to have you on. Good morning, my beautiful Candace friend. Lovely to see you. Welcome, all of you. And so let's just we won't go into that. But however I look to you, I'm hoping that I look good. And anyway, it's about the message. It's not about the messenger. So there we have it. So today, ladies, is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, the 28th of June, 2023, and it is the 9th of Tammuz, 5783. Just for those of you who are pedantic about spelling, sometimes Tammuz is spelled with 2 M's and sometimes Tammuz is spelled with 1 M. Neither way is incorrect or correct. Good morning, Charmaine. Sometimes people spell it with 1 M, sometimes people spell it with 2 M's. It's just one of those words that can be spelled either way. So for me personally, sometimes I spell it with 2 M's, sometimes I spell it with 1 M. It's just one of those words. So this morning we are looking at the month of Tammuz, because we are in the month of Tammuz, and it is a very significant month, as they all are. And today is the 9th of Tammuz, and just for those of you who are always keen for updates on the event on the 19th of August, the tickets are selling fast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so exciting because I am getting messages from people that a gentleman, Conrad, welcome. Ladies, I am getting messages from women that I have never met, who have not followed me as far as I know, who have messaged me asking if they can attend my event. I have got messages from women who are booking. Rose, welcome, Rose. It's so exciting to have you on. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce the Master of Ceremonies, the anointed, the glorious, the powerful Rosemary Roda, who will be Master of Ceremonies. Oh my goodness, I'm getting all emotional at my event, because Rose, ladies, because God has used Rose to make me who I am today. And I cannot honor her enough for that. And so she is going to play a significant role in this event. And she is going to be the host, the master of ceremonies, and release her, the pioneer that she is, the forerunner that she is, the everything that she has stewarded and over years and years in this city, in this nation, globally. She is bringing to this event. And so you do not want to miss the fact that Rose will be there. And while we're talking about Rose, Saturday morning, St. Andrew's Church, I shared it on my Facebook page, 10 a.m. in Cape Town. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Come to Rose's event on Saturday morning. It's worth it. It's worth it. Birthing, breakthrough, awakening, all of those things are available right now. And if you want those things, you need to sit under women like Rose, who are pioneers and forerunners, and just soak in what they carry. So Rose will be, she has agreed to honor me with her presence at this event and be my Master of Ceremonies. And so it is just going to be amazing. And I have women who are booking tickets for themselves and their husbands. So this is not just a women's event. It started off like that, and the men will be in the minority. Let's just be honest, there are going to be way more women than men, but my husband is going to be there. He wouldn't miss it for the world. And there are women who are messaging me and saying, can my husband come? And I'm like, bring him. He's going to be in the minority, and if he's okay with that, if he is a bold and courageous man who doesn't mind being one of a very few men, bring him along. So there are women booking tickets for their husbands. There are men who are going to be there. They don't mind that they're few and far between. They are coming. So honestly, the tickets are moving. They are moving fast and furiously. So please, if you are waiting to book, and please do not let the fact that it's in Somerset West put you off. It is not far on a Saturday morning. I have ladies coming from Komiki, which, if you don't know, Cape Town is the deep south. It is far. I have ladies coming from Komiki. I have a lady coming from Wellington, from Greyton, from Hermanus. I have a lady flying down from Joburg. I have ladies coming from Jeffreys Bay. I have a couple who have booked tickets who are coming from Jeffreys Bay. And they are standing in faith that she would have either given birth already or not given birth yet. So It's going to be exciting. There is going to be so much there for everybody. Okay. So welcome everyone this morning. Welcome to Arise with me, Sally Goodwin. Welcome to everything God is doing in this month of Tammuz. Welcome to the fire of intimacy that the bride of Christ is walking through at the moment. Welcome to what God is doing with that in your life right now. And welcome to, I want to introduce you to somebody that you may not have met yet. And this is the person that you want to know, because the Friday's word, I feel, was very weighty, and there were people who reached out to me and they were like, I needed to hear that word about intimacy, and I needed to hear that word about where we were. And this morning when I titled the message vulnerability, I was like, oh, there are going to be so many people who are like, they don't like vulnerability, they don't like that kind of thing, the things that come with vulnerability. But you do not achieve true intimacy, whether it be with Jesus or whether it be with each other, without vulnerability. You cannot achieve true intimacy without vulnerability. And so, but what I want to introduce you to this person, this incredible person, who is the person who comes alongside you. Good morning, Venetia. When you walk in vulnerability, which leads you to true intimacy. And for that, we are going to read from Deuteronomy 33, verses 26 to 29. So Deuteronomy 33, Moses has finished prophesying over the 12 tribes of Israel. God has told him that he will not enter into the promised land. He is about to go and sleep with his fathers. He is still, he's 120 years old, but his eye has not dimmed and his natural force has not abated. Good morning, Busiswe. Welcome, my friend. Lovely to see you. And but here he's finished prophesying over the 12 tribes of Israel. And in Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 26, Moses says this: there is none like God, O Jeshurun, or Israel, who rides through the heavens to your help, and in his majestic glory through the skies. The eternal God is your refuge and dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He drove the enemy before you and thrust them out, saying, destroy. And Israel dwells in safety, the fountain of Jacob alone, in a land of grain and new wine. Yes, his heavens drop dew. Verse 29, happy are you, O Israel, and blessing is yours. Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord, the shield of your help, the sword that exalts you? Your enemies shall come fawning and cringing and submit feigned obedience to you, and you shall march on their high places. In here, Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 29, we hear for the first time of Jehovah Chereb, the Lord your sword. Jehovah Chereb, Yahweh Chereb, the Lord your sword. The Lord your sword. When is the Lord your sword? When you are vulnerable, when you are humble, when you are walking in true intimacy. God comes as Jehovah Chereb, as the Lord your sword. Because when can God be your sword? When you are vulnerable. When was God the sword of Israel? When they were vulnerable. Today is the 9th of Tammuz. The 9th of Tammuz. On the 9th of Tammuz, if we look at Jeremiah 39, Jeremiah 39, chapter 2, and in the 11th year of Zedekiah, King Zedekiah, in the 4th month, remember that Tammuz is the 4th month on the biblical calendar. In the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, today is the 9th of Tammuz, they broke into the city. This is Nebuchadnezzar. On the 9th of Tammuz, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, breached the walls of Jerusalem and carted away King Zedekiah. The 9th of Tammuz. Years later, on the 17th of Tammuz, the Romans once again breached the rebuilt walls. And remember that Tammuz is the month when the Israelites previously, years and years previously, had built the golden calf. Prophetically, Tammuz is a month where year in and year out, these things, these calamities have befallen the Jewish people, have befallen the Israelites, because years previously, in the desert, while Moses was receiving the Torah, the very constitution that would make up the nation of Israel, the Jewish people did not trust in Jehovah Chereb, but they trusted rather in a golden calf. And for years, for centuries, and this is not just in biblical history, but in the history of Israel. If you look at the history of Israel, if you look at the even through the history of the Holocaust and the things that have happened to the Jewish people in more recent history, you will see the things that have happened in the month of Tammuz. Because there is a prophetic significance to the people of Israel choosing to rely on the strength of other things rather than on Jehovah Chereb, on Yahweh Chereb, on the Lord their sword. And what did God have to do in each one of those occasions? He breached the walls. He allowed an enemy to breach the walls, because what happened? Israel started to depend on their walls rather than on their God. They depended on their strong walls rather than on their strong God. And remember, quite a few messages ago, I preached on that verse from Zechariah where it says, "You will be a city without walls, and I will be the glory in your midst." What is a city without walls? A city without walls is vulnerable. A city without walls has no protection. But God himself said, "I will be a hedge of fire around you, and I will be the glory in your midst." But what they were relying on is the walls that they could tangibly see, instead of the God who could protect them with his hedge of fire and his glory in their midst. And in this month of Tammuz, as we walk through the fire of intimacy as the bride of Christ, we get tested on whether we rely on Jehovah Chereb, on Yahweh Chereb, or whether we rely on our own man-made walls, be that as individuals, be that as communities, be that as churches. Do we rely on the Lord our sword? Or do we rely on ourselves? If we look at Reuben, because we're in the month of Reuben, what did Reuben do? Reuben engaged in false intimacy. He went and he slept with his half-brother's mother. He slept with Jacob's concubine. We're never 100% sure when we read those stories. And sometimes it's translated as concubine, sometimes it's translated as wife. Those words were used very loosely, and in ancient Hebrew, there was no actual word that differentiated between those things. So as far as Rachel and Leah were concerned, they were viewed as Jacob's wives, and then he had concubines and things like that. But whatever it was, Reuben went and he slept with Bilhah, who was the mother to some of his brothers, half brothers. Reuben engaged in false intimacy. That was not true intimacy, that was false intimacy. And how many of us engage in false intimacy? And it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. But we find intimacy in other things because we do not want to expose ourselves. We do not want to be vulnerable enough. We do not want to be authentic. We do not do not want to bring ourselves, we do not want to bring ourselves down to the levels of vulnerability and humility that are required for true intimacy. And not just with other people, but with God. Because even though we know that God knows our hearts and He knows everything about us, we still feel like there are things that we can keep inside of us that we don't want to actually speak out. You know, years ago, after my divorce from my first husband, and when the first 3-4 years were an absolute nightmare, just absolute hell. My first marriage was, for those of you who don't know me, my first marriage was incredibly toxic, very abusive, when I finally got the strength to leave, quite a few years following that were very, very, very difficult. My ex-husband continued to be very abusive, and it was very difficult, a very difficult time. But I had lived a lifetime of trauma by that point. I was in my late 30s, and I'd lived a lifetime of trauma. And what happens when you live a lifetime of trauma, one of the signs that you've lived a lifetime of trauma is hyper independence. I can do this for myself, because you learn that you are the only person you can rely on. I can do this for myself. And one morning, and I was walking very far from the Lord then, because I had just given up on everything, and all I was doing was just getting through every single day and making sure that I lived and my father that I lived and my children lived, really. And that was just as long as we all lived through every single day, that was all that I managed. And one morning I woke up and I couldn't move. I couldn't move. I could hardly breathe. I was in such my back was in such agony. I could hardly breathe, and I couldn't move. And I called a friend of mine, and I said to her, I can't move. I can't breathe. I can't move. I can't do anything. And she said to me, it was over a weekend, and she said to me, hang on, I'm going to get hold of another friend of ours who was someone who did body stress release. And she said, I'm going to see if she can see you, and I'm going to come fetch you. She had to come. She almost had to carry me to the car, carry me to this person's house. And this woman explained it to me like this. She said, you have been self-protecting for so long that your actual skeleton has frozen. Your body, you have self-protected for so many times, for so many years, that your actual body has frozen in place in an attempt to protect you. Your body is desperately trying to protect you, and it has locked in place to protect you. Literally. It was the most frightening experience, one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had. My body was so frightened by what was going on that it was just hearing the words that I needed to be protected, and it locked in place to protect me. That's how our bodies and our minds and our brains receive these things. And so I worked through all of that, and I got through all of that. But even after I met Flynn and we got married, and he's just this most incredible man, and it was so God brought him into my life. And it has been a journey of years for me to be vulnerable enough to say to him, I need help. And God has said to me so many times, if you cannot rely on your husband, you cannot rely on me. If you cannot trust your husband, you cannot trust me. because he's there in flesh and blood. He loves you and he wants only what is best for you. If you cannot rely on him and trust in him, you cannot trust in me. And so I have needed to be, and then when God called me to preach, he said to me, Sally, I'm calling you to preach. And I was like, that is amazing. God, I'm so humbled. I'm so privileged. I'm so everything. And then he said to me, you will not preach a message you have not lived. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I've lived a lot of stuff, so I can do that. And then he said, and you will be authentic and you will be vulnerable. And I have had people who love me and care deeply about me, reach out to me and say to me, I think you're being too vulnerable. I think you're too authentic. I think you're giving people ammunition to, against you. And I'm just like, you know what? God has called me to be authentic, and he has called me to be vulnerable, and he has called me to do it in humility. And then the people who reach out to me and say, thank you so much for saying that, because I thought it was just me. And I'm like, no, it's never just you. It's never just you. But this is the thing. You see, we cannot achieve true intimacy. We cannot achieve true intimacy with Jesus. We cannot achieve true intimacy with each other unless we are vulnerable, unless we are authentic. And how are we vulnerable and authentic? It's when we are humble. We have to be humble. We have to come at it from a place of humility, because it is humility that allows us to be vulnerable, that allows us to be authentic, and that allows us to come to a place of intimacy. And then we don't have to have these walls that protect us, because we have God who is a hedge of fire around us and the glory in our midst. Every time God allowed the walls of Jerusalem to be breached, he after that proved himself to be Jehovah Chereb, Yahweh Chereb, the Lord their sword. Because when Israel then could see that they were done for, that they went off into exile, that they were yet another power was overtaking them, then they were turned back to the Lord, because they had nothing else to rely on except God. And God would return, and he would once again be able to be the God that they stood firm on, until they were lulled back into a space of complacency. And then once again, it would be a time where God would have to raise up another enemy for them. And for as long as we have other things in our life that we turn to instead of God, God is going to have to keep shaking the things that we have faith in. As long as we are turning to our governments, to our financial institutions, to our places of employment, as long as we are finding our security in our church communities, in our denominations, in our church streams, in as long as we have things in our lives where we are like, this will never be shaken, so this is where I'm putting my trust. As long as we have those things, God is going to shake those things, because we stand before God and we say to him, Lord, my trust is only in you. And then he says, you know what? I love you, and I know that you believe that with your whole heart, but it isn't true. Because your trust is in many other things apart from me. Let me shake some of those things and show you. And it doesn't mean that we get to be vulnerable and authentic with just anybody. You don't cast your pearls before swine. You are vulnerable and authentic with those that you can trust, that you know. But you give when you are vulnerable and you are authentic and you are humble. You give Jehovah Chereb, Yahweh Chereb, an opportunity to be the Lord your sword. I have a friend, beautiful, incredible woman of God, powerful, anointed, walks in the office of the prophet, and is very influential in the economic, financial sectors within our nation, has an enormous calling of God on her life, and God is positioning her in places of influence to be able to influence economic and financial policies within some very important and significant sectors within our nation. And when she first started coming to me, what has it been, 3 years now that I've been walking a road with her, and you know, and we've walked through this journey where she had identified the call of God on her life, and then she started walking in the call of God on her life, and she didn't want it at first, and we walked through this whole thing, and then but she had to walk this road, a tough, difficult road of learning to trust in God alone. And she walked through disappointment, hectic disappointment, where there was a space that she thought was hers. She thought there was something that was God, that it was God's design, and actually I believe it was God's design, and then it was stolen. But I also believe God allowed it to be stolen because he had a bigger plan, because he always has a bigger plan. But what happened was, at the end of the day, with the way that everything is worked out, and let me tell you, that woman walked a path of brokenness within this journey. God allowed her to be broken. He allowed the enemy to sift her. Make no error. He allowed the enemy to sift her in that space. But now, where she is now, where he has positioned her, and this is just the first step to where he is ultimately taking her. But where he has positioned her now, she messaged me the other day and she said to me, Sally, God is bringing me the heads of my enemies. Those were her exact words. Because where God allowed her to be sifted and all her walls were broken down, and she could trust in him and him alone, because there was nothing else to trust in. But where she stands now, where she is in a space where she literally walks moment by moment with him, step by step. She said to me, Sally, because the where she is, the political pressure, the pressure to be able to, she cannot move without moving with God. Moment by moment, step by step, she walks with the wisdom of the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit alone. And she said to me, Sally, God is bringing me the heads of my enemies. That is the Lord, your sword. Jehovah Chereb, Yahweh Chereb, when all your walls have been stripped away, everything has been knocked down, you stand only on him, and he brings you the heads of your enemies, because you have nothing and no one else to trust in except him. That is the Lord, your sword. And you know, the other story that God brought to mind, which followed on just after the story of Moses prophesying this. So just after Moses speaks of all of this and speaks about this Jehovah Chereb, he goes, Moses goes to sleep with his fathers, as it says in the Old Testament, and Joshua takes his space. And in Joshua chapter 3 is when the Israelites cross the Jordan into their promised land. And I was speaking to somebody about this over the weekend. And this is who we are. as a people who are pioneers, as a people who are forerunners, as the remnant that is arising up around the earth out of the religious man-made structures, as this new wineskin that we are all pressing into, this new thing that God is doing, this awakening, this birthing, this breakthrough space that we are occupying, that we don't see clearly yet, but we know it is right there. As those people, this is who we are. So in Joshua chapter 3, God says to Joshua that you shall command the priests to bear the ark of the covenant. When they come to the brink of the waters of the Jordan, this is verse 8, Joshua chapter 3, verse 8, you shall stand still in the Jordan. And what happened is, if you go to Joshua chapter 3, verse 13, it says, when the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth shall rest in the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan coming down from above shall be cut off, and they shall stand in one heap. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and when those who bore the ark had come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were in the brink of the water, then the waters which came down from above stood and rose up in a heap far off. And it goes down. And verse 17, while all Israel passed over on dry ground, the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. Understand this. The priests bearing the ark of the covenant of God, they put their feet in the Jordan in faith, and the waters of the Jordan rolled back. Remember this, when Moses parted the Red Sea, what did he do? He put his staff in the water, and the waters parted. It was just Moses. Now we come to the Jordan. God does it differently. He requires the priests to take the ark of the covenant on their shoulders, to put their feet into the waters of the Jordan. With their faith, the waters roll back. The priests then have to stand on the dry ground of the Jordan and let the entire nation of Israel pass over, whilst they stand there carrying the presence of God. Whilst they stand there carrying the mercy seat of God, whilst they stand there carrying the judgment seat of God, whilst they stand there carrying the intimacy of God, because that is how they knew it in those days before Jesus. Do you see? Are we not priests? Are we not a royal priesthood? Is that not what we are called in the New Testament? What is it that we get to do? Can you imagine those priests? This had never happened before. Yes, they knew about the Red Sea parting, but it hadn't happened like this. Those priests stood with the Ark of the Covenant in faith that the waters would part and stay parted while all of Israel crossed and while they crossed. They didn't know that would happen. They didn't know whether God would possibly decide to just let the waters, maybe the priests would all be sacrificed on behalf of Israel. They didn't know. They weren't sure. It had never been done before. They had to be humble. They had to be vulnerable to stand in the middle of the dry riverbed and wait for their whole nation to cross over before they themselves could leave. They had to stand in faith. For those of us who are called to be pioneers and forerunners in this new era, who are standing in faith for the awakening that is coming, for the new wineskin that is being birthed, for everything that God is going to do on this earth in a world that is feeling like it's being turned upside down and shaken every which way, where things are going crazy. We get to stand in faith We get to be humble. We get to be vulnerable. We get to stand in the space where this has never been done before. And it is us standing in the middle of the dry riverbed, carrying Jehovah Chereb, Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Jireh, that will guide the people across to the other side. That we can be a beacon, that we can be a signpost, that we can be the people who say, walk this way. Jeremiah 6:16. That we can be the watchmen saying, hear and obey the sound of the trumpet. That we can be the people that say, stand by the roads and look, ask for the eternal paths. We can be the people that say, here are the eternal paths. Here are the eternal paths where the good old way is. Walk in it and you will find rest for your souls. Here where you will find rest for your souls. Walk this way, cross here over into the promised land where you will find rest for your souls. This is the way. But we have to be humble, we have to be vulnerable, we have to be authentic so that we find true intimacy, so that we can show other people what true intimacy looks like. Because when you experience true intimacy with Jesus, you look different. You look different. People can see it. They see it in your eyes. They hear it in your voice. They see it in your countenance. True intimacy costs. It costs. It is not free. It costs. It costs all of those walls. It costs. It's countercultural. It costs us. It's not politically correct. It doesn't abide by the standards of the world. It costs us friendships. It costs us relationships. It costs us communities sometimes. It costs us everything. But it is priceless. It is priceless. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 to 11. Let the same attitude and purpose and humble mind be in you, which was in Christ Jesus. Let him, Jesus, be your example in humility, who, although being essentially one with God and in the form of God, possessing the fullness of the attributes which make God God, did not think this equality with God was a thing to be eagerly grasped or retained, but stripped himself of all privileges and rightful dignity, so as to assume the guise of a servant, in that he became like men and was born a human being. And after he had appeared in human form, he abased and humbled himself still further, and carried his obedience to the extreme of death, even the death of the cross. Therefore, because he stooped so low, God has highly exalted him, and has freely bestowed on him the name that is above every name, that in or at the name of Jesus, every knee must bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess and acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. You know, the book of Philippians is known as the book where Paul speaks of joy in suffering, because Paul knew intimacy with Jesus. And he found joy in that intimacy, even in the midst of his suffering. And the Passion Translation speaks of this as Jesus humbling himself and becoming vulnerable. Jesus humbled himself and became vulnerable. And it is only in that space of humbling ourselves, becoming vulnerable and authentic, that we give God an opportunity to be Yahweh Chereb, the Lord our sword. And it might not always be the way we think it will be. There have been times when I have been in situations where all I have wanted to do is defend myself. And God has said to me, do not defend yourself. I will defend you. And I have said to him, yes, Lord, but you don't defend me. You don't defend me the way I would like to be defended sometimes, because it comes very differently sometimes from you. But God does defend us, and he does vindicate us. Sometimes not the way in our humanity we would like it to happen, but it does happen. There is nothing worth more than intimacy with Jesus. And if there is anything getting in the way of that intimacy with Jesus, it's not worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not worth it. Whatever you are sacrificing intimacy with Jesus for, be it a job, be it a friend, be it a spouse, be it a family, it's not worth it. Be it a church, be it a position, be it influence, be it affluence, be it comfort. The cost is high, but the reward, that it is priceless. And if we are going to be those priests that stand and point people to the eternal paths, we need to be standing in true intimacy and relying on the Lord our sword, on Jehovah Chereb. So I just release over you this morning a revelation of the Lord your sword, a revelation of Yahweh Chereb, a revelation of Jehovah Chereb. I release a revelation of Yahweh Chereb over each and every one of you today, that you would encounter God as the Lord your sword in a new, anointed, and powerful way. And I ask that you like and share this broadcast so that others will get to meet Yahweh Chereb. And I ask that you share the book launch, and hopefully I'll see you at Rose's event on Saturday morning. Love you all. Bless you all. I'll see you on Friday. Have an anointed and appointed Wednesday. Watch out for the Lord your sword. He's going to show up in your day, in your week, in your month. True intimacy. It's the key.